Congresswoman, welcome back to the program here. The biggest question I think a lot of people have is how can you, not you necessarily, but how can the party get united with so much business waiting to be done there in DC?
That's a great question. I think that's something that we've been discussing for the last 3 days. We're going to continue discussing today. You got a lot of personalities. You guys, each of us represents about 700,000 different opinions, and getting us all in the room. Our disagreements are reflected across America dinner tables. A lot of people are having these conversations and discussions. We had two really strong representatives who were nominated, we have Jim Jordan and Steve Scalise, who have both shown leadership. They've been in leadership positions. Jim Jordan has been the chairman of the Judiciary Committee and has been leading the way on the impeachment inquiry and has just been doing a magnificent job. Steve Scalise has been our leader. He was our whip last session. And for all intents and purposes, I mean, he's an American hero. I mean, he took a bullet just because he was a Republican on that baseball field not that long ago. He's come over very strong. He's a great conservative voice for our party. And I think both those gentlemen stepped up. They ran. They had to answer a lot of questions. We had a pretty intensive Q&A at the candidate forum a couple of nights ago, and we've got two strong people yesterday. We had our vote within our conference. Steve Scalise received the majority of votes, and we plan to take it to the floor yesterday evening or yesterday late afternoon. That did not happen because at the end of the day, you've got 3-4 members of our conference who can basically tank any nomination and tank any bill. And people, I think, are kind of pondering around if they were Jim Jordan fans, if they were McCarthy fans. They're not necessarily Scalise fans, and we got to get over it. There's just too much on the table right now. I mean, you're looking at what's happening in Israel. You're looking at what's happening at our southern border. You're looking at what's happening with our pocketbooks. Those things have to be addressed.
Let me ask you about this narrow majority that Republicans have, allowing just 3 or 4 members to really, tear things up, if you will. Have members been talking to them or saying we all need to get on the same page here for the good of the party, at least?
We came in Monday night and we spent 2.5 hours in conference, all getting up and talking. Anybody who wanted an opportunity to say something had an opportunity to say something on Monday night. Tuesday, again, we reconvened. We had our candidates forum. We were able to ask questions. We were able to nominate anybody that we wanted to nominate. If you wanted to run, you could run. The two that had stood out and who had already announced that they were running last week were, again, Jim Jordan and Steve Scalise. Those are the people who do the questions. Those are the people who spoke. And then yesterday we got together. We discussed in conference at the beginning a rule change. A rule change is you had to have 217 votes of support in order to bring it out to the floor. That rule was motion. There was a motion to table. It was tabled. And now you asked, are we talking to those folks? Problem was, in the 3 days that we were spent together in conference, those folks who were not supportive of one or both candidates never really spoke up. So the conversations that we could have been having on Monday night or Tuesday night or Wednesday night did not happen. So, they will be happening today. We are getting ready to go into conference in a little over an hour, and hopefully we will have a plan moving forward.
Let me look ahead to a Steve Scalise speakership here. How do you expect a new speaker is going to run things differently in the House than what we saw with Speaker McCarthy?
Well, I think, somebody asked me over the weekend, I said, when did you realize that Speaker McCarthy was going to have a motion to vacate put against him? And I said, basically the same night that he got elected. There was just so many deals that were being made and so many people who were holding out for a better office space or what have you, or they wanted a rule change. It was really kind of set up against it. People get frustrated with Republicans because when we come into office at a majority, we don't, quote, hold it together. But at the same time, we also sit there and we revere those handful of people who don't work with the party. We got to get over that. You got over 220 of us here who all got elected in distinct districts who need to represent, the residents that live in their districts. It's really important. But right now, we have no leadership in our Oval Office. We need to have leadership in our speakers. and our speaker for the House, because the House is really the only one that's getting anything done. When you think about the bills that we've passed over the last 9 months that we've been in the majority, you think about the inquiries that we've had, the amount of information that we put out, transparent to the U.S. about what's to U.S. citizens about what's going on with their government, with their agencies. That is all important. What's going on our border, what's happening in our communities with fentanyl. We have to address it, and we have to have a speaker to be able to do that. We are in the middle of a 45-day CR right now. So November 17th, funding for our government ends. We have to have all of our appropriation bills out and done. Now is not the time for a distraction, and I think we've been distracted the last 7 days unnecessarily.
Congresswoman, I've known you for a long time. You sound frustrated. I've never heard you like this before.
I came here to do a job that I want to represent, and I'm sorry, but last year I was in Israel with my son, and we were at the kibbutz that you're seeing all those horrific pictures where babies were decapitated, where people were burned alive. And it is a time for serious conversations amongst adults in the room. I got elected to Congress to do a job, and it's frustrating to be here and kind of have like a front row seat and not be able to move forward. Those are the conversations we have to have. How are we supporting Israel? How are we preventing what's happening at our border from continuing? That's why I got elected. And you're right. I am frustrated being here, but I do believe that we have great people in the room. We just all need to come together as a team.
Ukraine needs money. Israel is asking for support as well. Are both of those two things that you are going to support?
I think Ukraine we have supported. We have given them several billions of dollars. I think right now we just need to know what the mission is, what the goal is, what the time frame, what the budget is. We haven't seen that from the administration. I have not seen the executive get up, the president get up and tell us or share with us any of those things. Israel is quite clear. I mean, you are seeing the butchering of innocent Jewish people. This is worse. This is the worst thing that has happened to the Jewish people since the Holocaust. I think, when we think about the trade relationships that we've had with Israel, the fact that they are our best ally in the Middle East, we have to support them, and it needs to be now.
Israel has a superb army and military. What I can't figure out is how that country was surprised by this attack.
It's a good question. It's questions that we're asking. Yesterday, we had a briefing yesterday morning, and those questions were asked. And it's not just from Israeli intelligence, but also from U.S. intelligence. And by the way, we have a great, very strong partnership with their intelligence agencies as well. And those questions are coming up.
Last question for you about the CR here too. The other pressing issue for the House is a month away, November the 17th. Congress has to fund the government to keep the federal government from shutting down. Are Republicans going to be able to agree on how to do that?
We had a great bill on the floor last Friday. It would have been, some people call it a continuing resolution. A CR is actually a continuation of previous levels of funding. What the bill was that we had on the floor last Friday was a 30% cut in discretionary funds. It was a tie to our HR2, which are Secure the Border Act, which would have prioritized making sure that our border was secure, would have forced Homeland Security to do its job, and it also prioritized things like our military and our veterans. We did not all come together as a conference on that. Moving forward, we're going to have to. Otherwise, we have a government shutdown November 17th. And that's not a good thing for anybody. It ends up costing us a lot more money in the end. We're not saving anything. Everybody gets paid when the government comes back up. They just haven't done their jobs. I don't think anybody wants that. But what I do want to see is cuts in spending. What we have witnessed over the last several years is out of control spending. Trillions of dollars have been added to our debt that we can't afford. We're right now, we doubled our deficit from last year from $1 trillion to $2 trillion. We cannot continue that. So those conversations have to be had. And it's really easy to say we have to cut the budget. We hear Republicans say that all the time, but the hard work is where. And that's what we need to spend the next several weeks deciding is where are we going to make those cuts? We don't want to normalize the spend that we saw during the pandemic. We want to get back to pre-pandemic spending, but we need to spend time on where are we going to have those budget cuts. And again, the last week has been a distraction from doing that job.
Congresswoman, thank you for the time.
Thank you very much, Jason. I hope you have a great weekend.